I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. The Concacaf Nations League didn't go so well for the USMNT, but it's time to look ahead. The team will be back in action for two friendlies in June against Turkey and Switzerland. We'll probably see the roster announced somewhere around May 27th. For those matches. And on today's show, we're going to discuss what we'll be watching for from this U.S. player pool over these next 2 months until then. To help me do that, Kyle Bond from the Sporting News is back. Kyle, welcome to the show. And let's just start with what's one thing you're going to be watching for over these next 2 months?
Yeah, it's tough because you want all these players to be together, right? Like that's clearly what this team needs is for them to be together and playing together, but you can't get that. So we got to find the next best thing, which is form. I mean, there's just so many players that really need a good finish to the season. You can look all across Europe and just kind of pinpoint a number of players who really could use it. You've got, Gio Reyna is front of mind. A couple of guys coming back from injury who I'm sure we'll talk about, but form. Can you keep it consistent? Christian Pulisic even, he had a rough international break and has sort of been fading a little bit this season. He's been really, really worked hard at Milan, and it looked like maybe he's starting to tire a little bit. And so just how much these guys can weave rest in with good appearances. Yeah.
Let's talk about those injury recoveries, because I do feel like there's a lot of those. Is there one particular guy you have your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Sergiño Dest. I would really like to see Malik Tillman get back to action too, but we don't know when that's going to be. It sounds like soon, if not.
He did play last weekend.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yeah, so Tillman came on over the weekend.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be back around the same time as Sergiño Dest. There's just been a lot of mystery and quietness around his injury, so that was a little bit worrying. But good to see him back, and I just think with anybody who's coming off a torn ACL, like Dest, it's just going to be about repetition and minutes, and how can he trust himself on his knee, and how can he continue to become the player that he was before. It's just a process, I don't think there's any questions that he will be. It's just a process, and about when and how long will it take for him to continue to be trustworthy of his reconstructed knee. So there's a process there that they have to go through, and hopefully we can see him get back to it. I know he played 77 minutes last time out. I was just looking at against Ajax in a defeat. So just got to get his sea legs under him, if you will.
Yeah, and why did you go with him? Do you feel like do you feel like the U.S. men's national team is particularly missing him and what he can do in the lineup?
I do. I really do. Joe Scally has played all right, but I just continue. You just don't get impressed by it, right? There's just nothing that's been impressive about Joe Scally, and he's been involved in some key negative moments, like he was involved in the Panama goal late. I just think they need Joe Scally so badly. I know that he was playing on the left side. I mean, they know they need Sergiño Dest so badly. I know Scally was playing on the left side a lot during the international break, but a lot of that is necessitated by Sergiño Dest's absence. So it's just been, you can tell something's missing. And I like Joe as a player. I think he's made leaps and bounds at the club level, but it hasn't quite translated to the national team yet. From a really, you watch Anthony Robinson, right? And you're like, damn, just like a complete player, right? Everything that he does is impressive. And you just don't quite get that same oomph from Joe at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he, does make it back into the, the squad for the June friendlies, I mean, it's going to be well over a year since he's played for the U.S. men's national team, and you do wonder how much of their attacking issues will be resolved, once he gets in there, because he just brings something that I think few players on the team can, and there is such a big drop off between him and Scally, especially in that area. So he's the number one guy I'm looking for as well. You mentioned he went 77 minutes in the last match. I'm curious, can he get up to going the full 90? And how does he look for the rest of the season? This kind of surprised me, but PSV only has 7 matches remaining. They finished their season on May 18th, so 7 more matches for him to ramp up towards that 90-minute mark. Show everyone what he can do. Is the speed there, the explosiveness, the ability to cut, that sort of thing. I mean, just keeping an eye on him, I'm like super, super intrigued, over these next 2 months.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing either. The fact that they don't have so many matches left is because it sounds like they really spaced them out. So you're not getting him playing, 2-3 times a week. Just, once a week, recover, rest, get back to it, and don't put a ton of miles on that knee right away. I'm for that. Yeah.
Another guy is Balogun in terms of injury recovery. So he's another guy. We had a lot of people that came on for the first time this weekend. Balogun made his first appearance over the weekend since he had his shoulder injury. I don't think he went more than like 10 minutes or so. I forget the exact amount. He also will have 7 matches left of the season. They also finish on May 18th. So can he get back into the starting lineup? Can he score some goals, get some confidence? And he hasn't even had one camp, with Pochettino yet. And so, how important do you think it is to get him going at full speed by the time we get to these June friendlies?
Yeah, huge. I mean, look, clearly Pochettino didn't trust Josh Sargent, which was frustrating, but he didn't trust him. And Josh didn't manage to get a goal, which, fair play, I guess. I wish he had gotten more of an opportunity, but he didn't come away with a goal. So I think there's still this, gaping hole at the striker spot. And Balogun has not had a good season. It's been spotty because of the injuries, but he's not had a good season. And I think he needs, unlike Dest, where, the performances are important, but you just want to see him log minutes at this point and gain fitness and gain confidence. With Balogun, he needs goals. And it's going to be tough at Monaco because he's got Briel and Bolo in front of him. And he's a good player, but he's had a mediocre season too. And I don't know if there's enough time for Fullerin to get back, grab the starting spot. I mean, 7 matches to finish the year. If you're a head coach, why are you going to change strikers with, 5 games to go? It doesn't really make sense. But he could get some key minutes, and I'd like to see him score a couple goals. If it's off the bench, it's off the bench. Ricardo Pepi's made it clear that is a way that you can earn your way back into the starting lineup, right? Score goals off the bench. It is a thing you can do. And if you're not starting, that's not an excuse.
Yeah. And you got to think he will have the edge. I mean, if going into June, I mean, Pepe's not going to be back. Pepe's the main guy. I think that's been pushing him, right? And I know Sargent's still going to be there, but like you said, it doesn't seem like Pochettino trusts him as much. It seems like Balogun will have every opportunity to play for the USMNT and kind of earn that starting spot for, in June, both the friendlies and maybe even going into the Gold Cup.
Do we know when Pepe will be back? Do we know what his injury is or the recovery? All I've seen is knee surgery. I haven't seen anything
They're so
else.
Secretive about all the injuries over there. But what I had heard when it first happened was that he's likely done for the season. So I assume that means that, he's not going to be, he's not going to play for PSV again. And so I think that would rule him out for any summer competitions as well. They'd probably just give him a full off season and hope that at the beginning of next season, he's ready to go. So, yeah. You also mentioned form at the beginning. When we think about it, I know every guy we want to have a good final 2 months, of the season. But is there a guy you can think of that particularly really needs to just excel and be in excellent form these last couple months of the season?
I would love to say Gio Reyna, but I can't ask too much of him at this point because the minutes just aren't there. So it's almost
I don't even think he
unfair.
played over the weekend. I think he was an unused sub.
And I don't quite understand it, man. I get it. Like if there's some behind the scenes nonsense or whatever, but like at this point, I personally haven't seen it. He seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders every time I've seen him speak. He's a good player when he comes on the field. I don't get it. But he keeps getting stuck on the bench. And it happens at multiple places. And I just don't understand it. Like with Dortmund, they have good players. I get it. Like Julian Brandt, you're not really going to unseat a guy like that, a Germany international in his prime. But to not get any minutes, you're telling me Jan Kuto is playing 90 minutes, at a right wing back, and you can't put Gio Reyna there? Like, I don't understand the fact that you can't find a spot for him. And I want to say I'd like to see him play more and have a good finish to the season, but I just feel like that's asking too much at this point. You've got to wait till the summer and hit the reset button. So I don't get it, but
I almost wonder. Yeah, I almost wonder if they are like, okay, we're moving on from Reyna after the season. Last thing we want is for this guy to get hurt, so we get less money for whatever transfer, or
almost the other way, right? Like
showcase him. Yeah.
Yeah, his stock is so low. At this point the risk reward is much more in favor of the reward. If he gets hurt, you're really not missing out on much. And his stock is so low right now. I don't understand why you don't play him and see if you can say, hey, look what we've got, right? We don't want him, but somebody else should.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's the guy I had in mind as well. I mean, you'd like to at least see him build some momentum so that he can maybe attract more opportunities, over the summer for a move, because it does seem like that's a given, right now that he's going to move, and it would be nice to see him get some confidence, get some minutes, maybe get some excitement around him. But I'll also mention Josh Sargent, I think is important, although he's already in top form. If for him to stay in the conversation now and stay in contention, I mean, all he can do is keep scoring goals and earn another opportunity. And maybe he gets that chance in June where he starts a match, bangs in a couple of goals, and puts himself, maybe earns Pochettino's trust, a little bit more. So I'll just be watching to see if he can continue to, end the season well.
And I really, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, because I feel like with Gio, it's a little too much to ask at this point, right? Like, you can't tell Dortmund to play the guy. So if he's not playing, I don't want to put that on his shoulders and say, oh, he didn't meet expectations over the last 7 games of the season or whatever, because that's kind of on us for expecting him to play when he just hasn't been playing for the past 2 years. I'll go with a guy, Christian Pulisic. I want to see him finish the season strong, because he's faded, and it's not necessarily his fault. He's played a ton of minutes on quick turnarounds in multiple competitions, and nobody else on that team is playing very well. And I'd like to see Christian step it up over the rest of the season, because he wasn't great in the international break, and he hasn't been great for the last few, I would say, weeks, maybe month or two. And I'd just like to see him step up a little bit more. and finish strong and just log like a complete season. He scored 3 goals right before the international break. So, at least it seems like he's still pushing. But the second half of the season just hasn't had the same numbers as the first half. And I'd like to see him finish the season strong. There's not a lot to play for Milan right now, because they're just
European qualification, I mean,
for sure, but they're ninth in the table.
Yeah.
It's brutal. There's nobody playing well on that team right now. They're conceding ugly goals. They're not scoring. Leao is on an island. Pulisic's on an island. God, Rafa Leao is one of the most frustrating players I've ever watched him in my whole career. He's so good, man. He's so good, and then it just doesn't happen, and it's so frustrating. But anyways, I'd like to see him finish the season strong because they're going to need him in the summer, and he's got to be a leader, and he's got to lead by example, and he's done that his whole career. But in the biggest games, it hasn't quite gotten there yet. You think about the one signature moment for Christian was the World Cup goal. And other than that, the biggest moments, they just need him to be in good form and really step up for the national team and find goals when they need it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice. I forget how many total goals he has in all competitions this season. It'd be nice to see him hit 20. I don't think he's too far away from it.
He's at 15-9 right now.
Okay.
9-8 in Serie A.
So possible, but that'd be a cool, I think, milestone, for him to hit. I mentioned European qualification there, and that's where I want to go next. And let's start with Champions League, because this is another thing I'm going to be keeping a real close eye on is all these Americans in Europe. There's a lot of them that are on teams that are really fighting for these, Champions League spots, and that seems like so that's so important for next season, because next season is the most important season because it's the season right before the World Cup. And so I want to ask you about 3 clubs in particular who are kind of in the mix. You have PSV. They're in second in the Eredivisie right now, 6 points clear of Utrecht. Top 2 advance, third has to go through qualifying. So I think they're in pretty good position, but they have by no means have it nailed down. Juventus is in 5th, 1 point behind Bologna, top 4 advance to Champions League. Monaco's in 2nd, 3 points clear of Nice in 4th, top 3 go to the Champions League. So they're in the mix too. Between the American players at PSV, Juve, and Monaco, which of those clubs do you think need it the most to get into Champions League next season?
It's a great question. I don't think Balogun needs it like the other 2 clubs do. So I'm going to throw Monaco out there. And I'm going to actually add Milan to that mix. And I'm going to say all 3 of those clubs need it desperately. And I will tell you why. First of all, Milan just needs to be playing in Europe, man. I don't care at this point, I don't care. It's not going to be the Champions League. So just make Europe. They are looking at the table. Juve's in 5th, like you said. Likely that 5th will not be enough for Champions League in Italy. It's almost, I think England's like a virtual certainty to get the 5th spot, and then I think Spain is the other one. So Italy likely out. So you need to get 4th. Milan's in 9th. They're 4 points back of 6th. So it's doable, but they just don't look good. And if Pulisic if the best U.S. national team player is not playing in Europe, that's a hammer blow. That's crushing. But I think Juve need it. I don't think they need Champions League. They're a rebuilding team right now. I almost want to say it's better for Wes and Tim if they're in the Europa League. That's a weird thing to say, but they just need minutes with that team as they build forward. And so I don't think it really matters what competition it's in. They just need to hang on. PSV, those guys need minutes outside of the Netherlands. I would say that's probably my number one. If you're saying Champions League, I would say it's PSV. If you're saying any Europe, it's Milan. But those guys at PSV, you always look at players playing in the Dutch league and you go, will it translate? Can I trust it, right? These numbers, can I trust it? And that's where you look at Ricardo Pepi and his performance in the Champions League and Malik Tillman, and you go, okay, I can trust it, right? Like, they've done it against teams outside of the Eredivisie. If they don't get those next year, you start to question their performances again, and you start to question, like, are these guys developing? Is this a false flag? Are they just, learning the league? It's such a specific environment that they need minutes outside that. And if they don't make it, or they get eliminated in qualifying, right? Like, that's the nightmare scenario. They make it and then don't make the group stage. And so you get, 2-4 matches? I think PSV need it most. But
Fully
I think it's Milan is 1B.
Yeah, fully agree with you. I mean, Juve, Milan, they're going to face, even if they even within Serie A, they're going to face top-level competition. Maybe not every single week, when they're playing bottom of the table teams, but there's a lot of good teams in Serie A. They're going to have a chance to do it. And they're going to be in Europe most likely, somehow. PSV, I'm thinking about the guys that play for PSV and how they're going to be competing for spots on that final roster for the World Cup. And if they're not playing in Champions League, I think they're going to be at a severe disadvantage, because that's really their best opportunity to prove that they can go against the best in the world and excel. So I think it's definitely most important for them. But I think it's pretty important for Monaco as well, because even though, Monaco will still play against like PSG and the likes of clubs like that. I mean, you have to say Ligue 1 is of the top 5 leagues probably the weakest,
for
top
sure.
to bottom, and so I think that's, again, for Balogun, if he can get into Champions League, he didn't really do anything in Champions League this year because he got hurt. But that's a good opportunity for him to get in there and prove himself, in the best of the best. So I think those two teams, but I think PSV is my number one, where you really want to see them get in a Champions League, or it's going to be really disappointing for the.
I mean,
look at
how much their stock has risen this season. Most of that is down to Champions League performance. You just get the most eyeballs, you get the most trust from your performances when you do it there. If he's stuck in the Eredivisie next year and only Dutch league play, even if he scores 20, 25 goals, it's just not going to get noticed,
Right.
It's not going to have the same impact.
Right. So let's, before I move on from that, let me just mention there a few other clubs. There's a lot of teams. There's a lot of players who are on clubs that are in contention for European spots. Lyon, Tanner Tespin in Ligue 1, Fulham and Bournemouth in the Premier League, Real Betis in La Liga, Gladbach, Joe Scally at Gladbach in the Bundesliga. They're actually in Champions League contention. And then FC Utrecht in the Eredivisie, Paxton Aronson. So there's a lot of players that have a chance to play in Europe, next season. And as many of those we can get in there as possible, I think that'll be really important.
There is a scenario that it is worth mentioning because of some of the clubs that you put out there. By the way, Bournemouth was in the mix for a Champions League spot for a hot minute, and then it's all gone belly up for them. They lost 3 of their last 4. Brutal for them because they were in the mix really, really heavily. There is a scenario where 11 English clubs could be playing in Europe next season. Now, this scenario involves an English club winning all 3 competitions this year. But if Arsenal win the Champions League, which doesn't feel likely, you have, or I guess you could throw Aston Villa in there. But who is in the Euro? Oh, Manchester United win the Europa League, and Chelsea win the Europa Conference League. You could get as many as 11 Premier League clubs in Europe next season. So it really behooves, and even if that doesn't happen, with the 5th Champions League spot, that pushes everything further down. It really behooves Fulham and Bournemouth to have a good finish to the season, because there is a good chance that there are a lot of European places up for grabs in that table. And so Fulham are right in the mix. Bournemouth have fallen a little bit back because of that recent form, but both are still in it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see both of them get in there.
Anthony Robinson against some of the world's best wingers. Please, please, please. I've been saying forever that he's a top 10 left back in the world, and I need some evidence to prove it.
Yeah.
I say this as a Fulham supporter, right? Like that is the club that really made me fall in love with this sport. So I've always had a soft spot for Fulham. He's got to find a better club. He's got to. And it stuns me. Every summer, there's no talk of Anthony Robinson going anywhere else. There was like a hot minute where he was flirting with Liverpool, and it just hasn't happened. Didn't he have that like moment where he was headed to AC Milan?
Failed the physical.
Yeah. But like, how has no other club snatched him up? It's astonishing to me. He is a top 10 left back in the world, and I will die on that hill. And it's stunning to me that he's still at Fulham. Look, to Fulham's benefit, but I want to see him at a Champions League club. I really, really do. He's good enough for it, and he's running out of time. He's not young anymore. He's 26, 27? He's 27. He'll be 28 at the start of next season. He's got to go now. And his contract expires in 2028. So like 3 years left on your deal. This is the summer for Fulham to get max value. Because if he gets down to 2 years left on his contract at 29, no one's going to buy him. He's got to go now. And I've said it for years that he's got to move, and it hasn't happened. And now's the time. If he doesn't go now, he's not going to get to a Champions League club.
Yeah. I think there's a good chance he will this time. I mean, there seems to be a lot of momentum building around him as one of the top, fullbacks in the Premier League in the world. So, would love to see that as well this summer. Okay, one last thing I want to ask you about before we go. MLS. Let's take a look at MLS. 2 months, the next 2 months in MLS. Who's the player you're going to be keeping the closest eye on?
Oh. It's funny because the more you ask this, the fewer and fewer there are, right? Every time we talk about this, there's fewer and fewer players in MLS that we can really hone in on. It's got to be Ajamang with Charlotte. He's got to be number one on the list. But I think there's two others that come to mind. I'm thinking Patrick Schulte, because I think Matt Turner's the goalkeeper right now, but if anybody steps up, I think Schulte's probably going to have to move if he really wants to take that spot. But right now, he's in contention for it. And then I'm going to throw one name out there that I think is going to surprise you a little bit. But I think he can take the next step, and it's Benjamin Kermosky. He's been playing with the youth national team. He's had a cup of coffee with the senior team. He's still really, really young. He's been playing regular minutes for Inter Miami, but not a weekly starter because they rotate between 4 or 5 midfielders. And he's not an every game starter. So if he can take that next step to being an every game starter for Inter Miami and being reliable, I'd love to see him be in the mix at the senior side, because I think he can factor into that midfield. Again, it's a crowded midfield at the U.S. side. You've got the 3 regular starters, but Moose is now thought of as a winger, at least for now. I think it's dumb, but we've already hashed that. Tessman is in the mix, but he can beat out guys like Johnny Cardoso if they keep having injury problems and can't quite get on form. You know, he can beat out some of those fringe players. You've seen Luca De La Torre drop off the radar a little bit. I want to see Benjamin Kremoski take the next step this year, and I think this is the year to do it.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, you did surprise me a little bit with that one, just because he's so young. But I mean, I know obviously he has the unlimited potential, right? And he's the type of guy that you know is going to help at some point. It's just a matter of when. I agree with you on Petar Gajiman. I mean, he seems to have built momentum. Pochettino seems to trust him, but he needs to be scoring goals. You know, if he's in MLS, if he's going to be an MLS player making it in, he needs to be scoring goals in bunches. He's not quite doing it yet, but can he get rolling? And then, of course, I'm going to be watching Diego Luna, you know, as well, who I think has earned a lot of trust with Pochettino. And then a guy that's growing on me a little bit is Jack McGlynn. I really do, even though he's not lights out or anything when you see him, I've been impressed with him when he's coming to USMNT camp. I've been impressed with how he's handling himself. He seems to have like a real confidence when you see him speak about it. Like he feels like he belongs there. Pochettino obviously trusts him because he put him in the game, you know, in key moments over the Nations League Final Four. So he's another guy. Yeah, I think for these MLS players, for them to stand out, they're going to have to start scoring some goals. And so I'll be watching that, you know, who the goal scorers are, you know, week in, week out over these next couple months.
And speaking of goal scorers, let's circle back to maybe put a bow on things. One player in Europe we didn't mention that I really should have because I'd like to see him finish strong is Haji Wright. He's back from his ankle injury. He scored a hat trick not too long ago, but other than scoring the hat trick, he hasn't gotten any goals in any games since coming back from injury. So I'd like to see him get back to his best consistency because given the situation up front for the U.S., he's a major factor.
Yeah, fully agree. He's another guy to keep an eye on. Well, Kyle, thank you again for joining the show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at @_bonfire, and also to your work at the Sporting News.
I will drop a little bit of a reveal for you here.
Here we go, folks.
I haven't mentioned this to you yet, but if you're following my stuff on Sporting News over the next month or two as we look to close out the season, keep an eye out because I will be headed to Spain to cover a Real Madrid match, which I'm very, very excited about. And it's still in the works. It's not exactly likely at this point, but I am efforting to get myself to Classico. So we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, for sure, I will be attending a Real Madrid match in May. So if you're a European football fan, please keep an eye out for that. I'm extremely excited to get to the Bernabeu and just see what, you know, get a sense for the aura and the atmosphere and you know what the Galacticos environment is all about. So if you follow my stuff on Sporting News, please do keep an eye out for that.
That is super exciting. You know, it's funny. That is the one. That's the one European club I've seen. I've been to the Bernabeu once, long time ago. I saw Ronaldo.
There you go.
I saw Ronaldo play back when I saw them play Atletico Madrid, probably about 10 years ago. It's the only time I've been to a big European clubs match. So that's awesome, man. Well, that's awesome, man. I'll certainly be following along and looking forward to seeing some pictures from that. Thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.